Hello, beautiful people. This is Scott from Site Visibility with John Hibbett.
Hi.
And today we're going to be talking about 2017 game changers, the topics that you really need to know about. Our agenda for today is we're going to firstly recap the major changes in digital in 2016. It's pretty Google heavy. It's a reflection of the fact that our foundations are in search and we can't escape that. We're always curious about what's happening on with Google and algorithms, and there's plenty of that that's happened this year. And then we'll move on to 10 hot topics for 2017, not as Google heavy, and in fact covers everything from technology to analytics. So it looks like it's going to be an interesting year. Our contact details are at the very end of this video, so if you want to ask us any questions, please feel free. We're happy to discuss the topics today with you. Okay, so let's start off with, in case you missed it, slide for 2016. Back in February, Google removed the right column ads in search, and really there's been no major impact. It was predicted that possibly that 4 ads would be shown, and this is still the case, that 4 ads are shown for highly transactional queries in search results. So that is happening. It's useful to know that product listing ads can still appear on the right-hand side, but they're the only type of ad that can. And yeah, it was predicted that the positions will become more expensive and that organic results will be pushed down, but there's been really no studies that have reflected anything major that's happened in search results, particularly related to click-through rate. And I think really that's a reflection of the fact that click-through rate in search results is specific to your industry and even to ad group level. So really very little impact and not much to talk about. And so now with John in March, where Google launched 360 Suite.
360, yeah. So this was pretty much a marketing exercise that Google undertook. And the issue here was they had sort of these various betas going on, like surveys, attribution, experiments, and they'd all been launched under this enterprise branding called Premium. So this marketing exercise took everything into what's now known as Google 360 and consolidated it, and it got a good brush up, and it all looks really cool when you sort of look at the site and the different tools and what they offer. So Premium became Google 360 in essence, and a quick list off of some of the tools that are included with that. It's Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, Google Optimize, which we're going to be talking about later. That's still in beta. Google Data Studio, also in beta. Google Surveys, Google Attribution, and very interestingly, the Google Audience Center. And this is kind of like a tool which brings in all your Google data into a single place. Think of it as like a CRM, but even beyond that. And there's 3 versions of these tools, and that's kind of what we're going to be talking about a bit later on too. So don't think that just because it's an enterprise rollout that you're going to miss out. Google have very wisely created free light versions of some of these tools which you can get stuck in. And we are already playing with these. It's all very exciting.
Yeah, good teaser products. They're very good. And we'll talk about Optimize and Data Studio specifically in a few slides' time.
Cool.
Okay.
So off to May.
Yeah, off to May. So then in May, the mobile-friendly update was refreshed. So the original mobile-friendly update was, or algorithm was launched in March 2015 to reward mobile-friendly sites. And really this refresh was just a greater reward for mobile friendliness. And again, we'll talk quite a lot about mobile in today's kind of session, but it's another indication that they were going to a mobile-first world, and we'll talk about mobile-first indexing, accelerated mobile pages. And this mobile-friendly refresh actually coincided with a couple of small changes to their testing tools as well. So if you haven't used the mobile-friendly testing tools, go ahead, use those after today as well.
Yeah, should we go into August?
Into August.
So August, this was actually a very significant change. So Google made changes to the keyword planner, the AdWords keyword planner, where you can go and get free keyword data. What essentially happened is they limiting the amount of data you can get based on your ad spend in AdWords, and this is really significant because if you're not spending a lot of money in AdWords, it means the data you're getting out of there isn't all the data, and that has a somewhat worrying impact in terms of doing your keyword research on this tool alone. But it also has a knock-on effect for other tool providers who use this data to complement their databases of keywords. You have to be cautious when you're using this tool now, and I'm very much aware that it's a broad brushstroke at best, and at worst you may be missing significant insights into keyword searches.
Yeah, no, it's a big change for in particular SEO professionals out there who have historically relied on the keyword planner. I think the only thing that I'd add to that is that I think Moz have done a really good thing by doubling down on search, one for their business, but two with the kind of development of their, I've forgotten the specific name, but the keyword analysis tool, where they've got their own kind of click-through modelling, and their own difficulty scores, and really their own database of keywords. So I know
paid tool though. But,
I know they're working on that. So my key takeaway from that is go and experiment with the Moz tool if you haven't yet for their keyword research. I think it's brilliant. Okay, so then moving on to September. So in the last couple of months, we had the Penguin 4 rollout. Really interesting that we had been waiting for that for such a long time, around 2 years, and we finally got the update. Really, the key thing to know here is that if you were historically affected by any of the Penguin updates, then you may have seen some kind of benefit if you made the kind of historic action to remove and improve kind of your link profile. So if you've seen an uplift in traffic around that time, that's something to go back and look at and be aware of. The other important thing to know about Penguin is that there will be no announced updates, so it's something that's now part of the core algorithm. So any effects to links will happen live. So that means if you get a link penalty and you remove it, you can see a very immediate effect. And there's a bit of discussion about negative SEO and whether that can be taken advantage of, because the theory is with Penguin running live, you could be penalised more quickly. If you've got a high number of inbound links. But really, there's not been too much negative SEO as in examples. It's more discussion at this particular point in time. But yeah, that was Penguin 4.
Yeah. Shall I pick up the Analytics Assistant?
In the same month we had Analytics Assistant.
Yeah, so one of the big problems that website owners have had is getting insights out of the data. And Google launched this Analytics Assistant, which we're all running on our mobile phones on an app. And it basically creates, it's AI driven, so it's using the technology behind DeepMind and the technology that's also baked into search now. They've been using that deep core technology within that AI. And essentially it surfaces insights for you. So it says, something significant happened here. Or I'll give you a good example on our site, reports back and says, this page, which is getting a very high volume of traffic, has had no goal conversions. So this is an immediate insight. We can take this away and think, oh, hang on, did we put a call to action on the page? Is there something for users to do when they find this? What's the next thing that they should do after reading this? Did we do that? And it's like, we're finding that sometimes we missed that. And this tool just is like reporting that back to us without us having to delve into data, without us having to sift through and find the jewels. So I'd say to you, if you're not using this, basically get this set up on your mobile, start carrying it around with you and start digging into it. It's beautifully laid out, really easy to use. Obviously, the key point about this in your analytics, if you haven't got goals set up already, make sure you do that. Because goals are your website performance metrics, and they're telling you whether you're doing good, whether you're moving forward or not. So if they're not set up, as a precursor to getting this installed, make sure you've got goals set up.
Yeah.
Cool.
And the other thing to note is that in terms of setting it up, it is already set up. It's built into the Analytics app on iOS and Android, so you can go ahead, download that straight away for those devices. Okay, if you're ready, John, we're going to move on to 2017 game changes. Okay, cool. Yeah. So we'll start off with number 1, the interstitial penalties. So if you're not aware of this terminology and what it is, Google first launched an add interstitial penalty for apps back in November 2015. If you don't know what they are, well, they're intrusive pop-ups. They're the kind of things when you're on an app or on a mobile site, you get these big kind of pop-ups that say install our app now or do this now. And they're not considered mobile friendly. And again, we discussed it before, but mobile friendliness and mobile first is going to be the topic of I'd say probably the entire webinar, the biggest takeaway. Definitely. And so this is rare for Google to say this, but they've already announced that they announced back in August that they will crack down on interstitials beyond just for apps from January the 10th, 2017. So on your mobile site, if you've got these big giant pop-up ads or anything that's trying to encourage, it could be used for lead generation. You could suffer in mobile search results. So the key takeaway here is review your interstitials and also go and use the mobile-friendly testing tool if you're in any doubt. But it's an announced update, so we can prepare for it.
Yeah, interesting opportunity there for sites who are using people who are using WordPress sites and the developers of the plugins to kind of make sure that they're programming in this like sort of friendliness for this kind of
definitely
marketing technique.
And it gets even more interesting when we go on to later when we'll start talking about AMP and also the mobile first index. But we'll leave that as a teaser for now. Okay, on to number 2, which is
one of my absolute favourites. This Google Data Studio. So we talked about the significant development back in March, and this is one of the really good, accessible, easy to use tools that is included in Google 360. This is the light version on the right hand side here. And if you've used tools like Tableau or you're familiar with Power BI, Microsoft's data visualization tool, you're going to love this. But it joins up natively to Google Analytics. It joins up to AdWords. It joins up to all your Google tools, BigQuery, Attribution 360, Google Docs, YouTube Analytics, and anything you can get into a Google Sheet.
That's a big list.
So you know, this is a major visualization tool, and it's really easy to use. You know, you get like this dashboard. You can drag and drop stuff around. Click on it. There's a date range. It brings back the data in real time. You get 5 fully customizable free reports. A site each, and within those reports, you can have unlimited numbers of pages. So you can get everything, the kitchen sink of your marketing, into this tool. I can't say enough good things about it. It's just great. It's really easy to use. I spent a day and I had about 5 pages of really good actionable reports. If you're in a larger company, this is a great starting point to start playing around. If you've got different marketing teams in different areas, rather than sending them into Google Analytics where they may find what they need but they may not. You can just get your key KPIs, your website objectives, visualized in a report that you share like a Google Sheet. Bang it out to those people via an email. They don't need to log into Google Analytics anymore. They can just click in there. They can set their own date ranges. They can click into the data points themselves. It's just fantastic. I love this. Not enough good things to say about it. Key takeaway: it's free.
Yep.
It's cool. It looks beautiful. Top winner. Sign up now. That's my takeaway.
Okay. Moving on to now my favourite topic, which is Google Home and Amazon Echo. Probably can be summarised as smart home devices. If you've not heard of these, I think this is kind of one of the biggest, in my opinion, technology changes that's probably not only going to affect marketers, but I think will just affect life in general. So
is that R2D2 there, Scott?
Yeah, these are kind of your home personal assistants now. So let me summarise Echo to start with. So Amazon Echo has actually been available in the US for 2 years now, and actually just came out in the UK a couple of months ago. I've got Echo myself. I use it for everything from asking it questions to setting my morning alarms to creating shopping lists. There's languages that you can learn from it, and cookery apps, all kinds of stuff.
Does it make dinner?
It doesn't actually make dinner. I wish it did. It would probably be a bit more expensive if it did.
Yeah.
And Google, so Amazon Echo was first to market of these kind of devices, and over 5 million units have been sold. So it's done really, really well in the US, and has done well since it's kind of launched over in the UK. And earlier in the year, Google announced that their version, or their equivalent, Google Home, was going to launch this year. It did. It launched in last month in the US. There's no release date for the UK yet. But just so you get a bit of an overview about what you can do with these, I mean, this is an entirely new way to search for information, to interact and ask questions, and really a move towards more conversational search. So, voice search historically has been one way. You ask Google a question and you get a specific answer. But now there's follow-up, so it will understand the context of previous questions in order to answer those in the future. At the core of these two devices, so with Amazon, you've got Alexa, which is their AI. It's their version of something like Siri. And at the core of Google's is Assistant, Google Assistant. And Google Assistant is their name for their kind of artificial intelligence framework, which is going to be used in things like Google Analytics, in apps like Allo and other new Google tools and apps. So you can also organise your life. Like I said, there's a personal assistant, so it's got calendar features, and you can buy. So I don't know that this is out in the UK yet, but the intent is there to create shopping lists, buy directly through the apps and stuff like that, through the devices as well.
So this is also kind of touching into voice search in a way.
Well, yeah. So going on to the point about voice search. So what's really, really interesting at the moment, and the early comparisons of the two devices have been that Google is much better and smarter at answering questions, which maybe you'd expect. And the indication from Google has been there over the last year. And they've been gradually rolling out features in the last maybe 2-3 years. When we think of the knowledge graph, and when we think of featured snippets, and now rich cards and schema and everything else. There's a really good article on Moz from Dr. Pete where he breaks down where Google Home gets some of its answers from. And it's still unclear, there's no kind of official information on it, but it's very clear that they're using featured snippets for a lot of question-related results. So the featured snippets, if you're not aware, is when you ask a question. It can typically be mid to long tail in Google, and you'll see a result at the top where it takes a snippet of that post and gives you a quick answer. Well, Google Home is using those answers to answer users' questions. So now, how it affects in terms of SEO in particular. I mean, one, it's an opportunity. It's really a nice prompt to say, hey, there's another way to interact with your users. And there's going to be plenty of companies out there that have to think, well, we've now got a new medium or device in which to interact with people. So that's something to think about. But from a search perspective, it becomes really interesting because now, and I do this, I actually very rarely, I sit there often before I fall asleep at night and just ask Alexa a bunch of questions that I'm curious about. Things to do with the size of mountains and how far it is to the moon and those kind of stupid questions. But what's really, really interesting is that previously I may have searched for those and now I'm asking.
Faster route to information.
For me as a user, it's a faster route through to information. But what's interesting is there's no kind of analytics to keep track of all of this. So the debate at the moment is there was a really interesting Whiteboard Friday maybe earlier this year from Rand Fishkin where he said just voice search in general is a layer on top of existing search, so it's not going to take away from device search. It's just going to add a new type of search. I think if I was to predict, I actually only based on my own usage of the device, I'm using other devices far less now that I have Alexa. So it is a direct replacement for me, and I think that's what we're going to see moving into the future.
Very interesting.
So it's really interesting. It's a little bit ambiguous, and again, it's up for debate how this is going to affect things like search and marketing. But the real key thing is, I mean, the Google Home again isn't available in the UK, but I think it's around $100 in the US. Echo is available, and actually there are a couple of new devices such as the Echo Dot, which is a slightly smaller version, and Echo Tap, which is a kind of a mobile version you can take about with you, and that's those range from about £50 to £150. So it's really super accessible. So whether you do it for home, and the other thing I'd recommend is if there's any kind of agencies out there, buy one for your agency, get people interacting with it in your agency as well, because you should not know what's going on with these devices. So go buy one.
There you go, agency Christmas present, everybody.
Okay, agency Christmas present. Okay, so moving on to number 4, which is
JavaScript rendering. So yes,
slightly less exciting.
It's not so sexy, definitely not, and it's not really new either. But what we are starting to see from an agency perspective is we're being given JavaScript sites now, and we've been given the message that this all works fine in search, and that's why I wanted to talk about this, because we've known for a long time, even way back to 2011, that Google can crawl, can index, can render, execute as well JavaScript. But when you're moving to a JavaScript framework, you have to go a little bit further than just accepting that Google can do all this stuff. So this was just a couple of key takeaways to say, definitely JavaScript powers a lot of web interaction, a lot of really cool experiences on your websites, and that Google can potentially understand this stuff. But just a couple of quick cautionary checks that you need to run, preferably in a staging site.
Yeah, definitely.
To establish that this is all true and it's all going to work, because the risk is huge, and that is to use Google Search Console's Fetch as Google tool. And this basically, you plug in the URL and it gives you a visualization of what Google can see, and it tells you what is blocked. And it's really important when you're going to JavaScript-based technology that you don't block your JavaScript, you don't block your CSS. Basically, you don't stop Google from seeing anything that could be involved in the rendering of the content. And the next one is like super important, which is basically do a crawl with a tool, crawler tool that can emulate this JavaScript crawling. One example that we've used a lot is Screaming Frog. So set this up. You'll probably need to configure it a little bit to actually do this properly. Read the blog post instructions and look at the results. Do some comparison crawls. Use a tool that doesn't crawl JavaScript. And this is going to be crucial to you understanding the risks that you're walking into. So please, key takeaway: proceed with caution with JavaScript rendering and these kind of new websites that are all JavaScript that are coming through.
Yep, and just another quick reminder really that particularly this is definitely a search factor. If you're getting a lot of traffic through from organic search, and that's the main driver of traffic and revenue for your business, then kind of take caution when you're thinking about migrating or changing kind of anything to do with the structure of your website, really. Moving on to 5. Big topic throughout kind of this year, but definitely towards the end of this year, and it's definitely going to be a big topic next year as well, particularly when we think about the mobile first index. And there's a little bit of confusion around this at the moment, so I'm going to try and break that down a little bit as well. And we're talking about accelerated mobile pages, but you'll hear it most commonly referred to as AMP. So it was announced in October 2015 by Google, and Google are kind of leading the project, but they're working in conjunction with a number of different publications and companies, including, I think, Twitter, maybe Huffington Post, Washington Post, those kind of companies. They announced it in October 2015, and then it officially launched in February 2016, but originally it appeared in mobile results as a carousel, and most of you are probably familiar that there's a carousel for news at the top of mobile search results. You click those results and it's a faster loading type of page. And that, in essence, is what AMP is. It's a resource-light way to render web pages that relies on a new framework called AMP HTML. I've seen people refer to this as a diet form of HTML. So you have
HTML light.
Yeah, so it's a stripped-back form of HTML, and it also kind of strips back JavaScript usage and CSS as well. So it's super light but super fast to load. And the whole reason and the framework was created and these companies worked in conjunction was to improve the mobile web. Because it can be, historically it has been difficult when you're on your mobile, things are loading slow. Moving into a mobile-first world, we want things to be faster, and so it just made sense to do.
Lost conversions big time there.
Yeah. So for most of this year, it's been kept kind of to that top part of the carousel for news results. But it launched outside of news items in September 2016. So now in mobile search results, you can have an AMP page that appears, and it's treated by kind of Google as the preferential page. So if you have an AMP page, and it's likely to appear in search results rather than your normal page or your standard page or your original page, if that's what you refer to it as. There is an AMP testing tool, so and also there's lots of dev resources for this. So if you go to, I'll send the link around afterwards, but I think it's ampproject.org. There's a significant amount of testing, developer resource tools, and lots of information about the project and who's been involved in the project as well. There's also, I know there's a number of WordPress users out there, there's an official WordPress plugin, which, just remind me, we need to use for our own site at some point.
Yeah, there's 2 plugins I think you need to actually pull this off.
So really you can get testing, and later we'll talk about the mobile index. Now, just to summarise really the confusion is that you're going to have kind of your main site. Some people have separate mobile sites, and then there's AMP on top. But I'll aim to clear up a bit of that confusion when we get onto the mobile first index in just a moment.
Yeah, I mean, a key point for this really is like this is Google technology, right? So we are being shoehorned in to a certain degree into using this. And the benefits are there, but it is like a parallel development stream.
Yeah, well, you're completely right. In terms of the word parallel, you're right. What you end up having is you end up having your original page and then your AMP page, and then some people might even have a third page. I don't know, maybe they have separate mobile and desktop sites, for example.
That's right.
So we can be going down the route now for some people where they've got three different types of page to maintain. Just so you're aware of how AMP works, it's actually useful for you to mention that, John, is that so it works similar to a canonical. There's a canonical tag or a similar, I've forgotten the exact name of it, but it kind of says, it's like an alternate tag. It's an indication to search engines that it says on your original page, you kind of say, hey, here's the AMP page.
Okay.
So it works similar to a canonical tag, just to say, hey, Google, go use this page.
Duplicate content threat there as well.
Yeah, well, that's what kind of solves that issue, really. But anyway, the key takeaway here is go and start the conversation with your developers. Keep an eye on AMP. And also, there's quite a few case studies out there about companies that have started to use AMP. The one that stands out in my mind is eBay. I think eBay have got an AMP page for every single product that's listed on eBay now.
Whoa.
So it's really so if you do go away, look at the case study from eBay and see how they've implemented it. That's probably a useful starting point. Okay, moving on to point number 6, which is messenger bots.
Yeah, this is hugely interesting. I mean, a lot of you will be familiar with Facebook Messenger, which is like a chat tool, and bots kind of takes this a step further. Bots allows you to integrate your own kind of like technology and tools within chat ecosystems. And I've used Facebook because it's so widely known, and they've basically opened up their the Facebook Messenger development platform to people to allow them to create new bots. And this is a way that you can access, particularly the millennial audience who are heavy users of this different communication mechanism. I mean, there's 1 billion users on Messenger. I mean, it's an incredible audience there. But effectively, what you can do is you can pipeline your website or your offering into Facebook Messenger, and then you can have conversations immediately to your business from within Facebook Messenger. If you have goods or services, you can build that into your bot. So if people are searching within Facebook Messenger for a certain thing, you can make it so that your products will actually appear. People can buy this stuff. You can integrate the bot so they're able to buy stuff straight out of Facebook Messenger. I mean, this is like a really amazing development. It's a true game changer, I think, Scott.
Yep.
And the language engine that's being used by Facebook is known as WIT.AI or WIT.AI, the artificial intelligence engine, and it's actually learning from these interactions. And this is the smart thing that Facebook have done by opening it out. They need the flow through. They need people to do stuff in order for this engine to learn. But if you want to have a really good laugh, check out Starbucks Pumpkin Spice Latte Messenger bot. The link is in there. We'll be passing it again. We've got lots of links to pass around as a resource after we finish this conversation. But if you have, for example, a lot of social media interaction already, you probably want to start exploring a bot or creating your own bot, so that people can just connect with you and all your stuff immediately out of Facebook, immediately out of the Messenger tool, or even just the Messenger tool app. So think of this as a real game changer in terms of your customer service, in terms of your e-commerce. Getting into this early, there's going to be opportunities there, and particularly if it's that millennial audience and that is a fit for you, you want to be into this in a hurry.
Excellent. Yeah, that's brilliant. We actually had a representative from Bing in our office yesterday, actually, and they were talking about their use of bots for AI, and particularly with e-commerce stores, so for customer service. So expect to be talking to a lot more bots in 2017.
Straight out of Messenger. Or
yeah. Okay. Now on to a big discussion point right now, and it's likely to come in 2017. Well, it's actually in progress, but in testing at the moment, is the mobile first index. So back in November, Google announced that they are testing a mobile first index. So that you know what that means, up until now, Google has used desktop versions of web pages as a signal for mobile search results. But that completely flips on its head with a mobile first index. What that means is they're now going to be looking at your mobile pages first as a ranking signal. So I noted this earlier, but that's a huge change for any sites that have different mobile and desktop experiences. It puts a heavy emphasis on having a great mobile experience, and you will be rewarded for that. Now, where the confusion lies at the moment is that we've had AMP recently this year, and now there's talk of the mobile first index. So to summarise, the understanding at the moment, and it's a little bit ambiguous, but the understanding at the moment is that the AMP pages will get priority. So if you have an AMP page, that will get priority in mobile search results. But now the kind of layer underneath that is that then Google will use your mobile site first as the primary source of ranking for mobile and desktop. But it doesn't matter if you don't have a mobile site; your desktop site can still be crawled. So Google have announced that they are going to release some kind of official information around this topic, and there isn't that yet. And there's no date when this is officially going to roll out, but we do know, because they announced back in November, that it is in testing.
Yeah, it's kind of imminent, right?
Yeah, so I think, if you've been working on maybe introducing AMP, if you've been working on making your site responsive, you'll see no major changes. I think this is a real prompt for anyone that has different desktop and mobile experiences. So if you have different content on mobile than you do desktop, then maybe it's something to look at, and you really need to you need to be thinking about your development resources and budget for next year, because you're going to have to implement this. Otherwise, you definitely will suffer in search results. I'm fairly certain. So the real key takeaway is undertake an audit of your mobile site, but really, I think, know what's happening with if you have separate sites, with the differences between your desktop and mobile sites. So make it a more cohesive experience, and really move towards a responsive design as soon as possible. Yeah.
And what does this mean for sort of mobile keyword tracking and like?
Yeah, that's a really good point actually. So it will also mean that again, historically, if you're an agency or even in-house and you've been tracking desktop results more so than mobile, well, I think that's going to change. I think that we're going to be tracking more mobile keyword results if we are still tracking keywords and looking at those.
Yeah.
And the other change is that I expect there to be quite a few changes to Search Console as well. And also, we talked about analytics earlier. I think people may be paying more attention to their mobile segments and things like that as well. I mean, I would say that given the prompts regarding mobile friendliness in the last 18 months to 2 years, a lot of people probably are doing that. But for those that haven't been and kind of let it fall by the wayside a little bit, kind of maybe swept it under the carpet, well, it's probably going to be a bit of a concerning time. But the benefit to us as users, if we're not thinking from an agency perspective, is that we're all. I forget the statistic, but mobile search is overtaking desktop search, and so it makes sense for. And as users, I mean, I don't know about you, but again, I'm always using my mobile.
Always.
So
first point of contact.
So for users, it makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's all on that topic, really.
Very interesting.
I guess keep an eye on our blog, because when there are updates regarding the mobile first index, we'll likely cover them on our blog or on our podcast as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Right.
So on to the next beta that we've been playing with, that Google rolled out, which we think is another game changer, and this is Google Optimize. So in a nutshell, Google had this beta called Experiments that they ran for a long time, which didn't really seem to get a lot of traction. It's similar to tools like Optimizely, where you can run like A/B redirect testing, MVT testing. So you can test different variations of your page against each other to see which is the best, and you can tweak elements within those. So it's a very powerful conversion rate optimization tool and technique if it's done, used wisely. So this package is actually integrated with Google Analytics and Tag Manager, and that's a big step up for most people who are using these tools, which means you've got a free optimization tool that allows you very quickly. I had this up and running literally in half an hour today, almost ready to do an experiment. And this actually allows you to run these tests, and it looks directly at the goals you've got configured in Google Analytics. So I've already said once, make sure you've got your goals set up for your analytics. And as long as you've got that, this tool is like bang, it will start giving you significant information back on which page is better or whatever hypothesis it is that you're willing to test. So it's a no-brainer. It's a free tool. This is like a free version of Optimizely. Think of it as that.
Yep.
Just grab hold of it. Yes, it has got some limitations, like Data Studio, but just get into this, start having a play around with it, have some good hypotheses. know why you're there and what you're trying to achieve, and get in there and sign up.
Yep, good entry level into A/B testing.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a huge topic, so I'll try and keep it brief, but virtual reality and augmented reality. So a number of you probably are most familiar with the term augmented reality this year from the Pokemon Go phenomenon. The app Pokemon Go was downloaded over 100 million times. Everyone was kind of walking down the street, catching Pokemon, falling off cliffs. It was a big craze, and that was probably the first taste we got of an augmented reality app becoming mainstream. And it kind of I think it's given people a spark about ideas about where augmented and virtual reality might go next. I've not got all the details here, but there's been lots of development progress with virtual reality in the last 3 years. We've had Google invest in it, and we'll talk specifically about Google in a second. But Facebook have they own Oculus, which is another virtual reality device, and really moving into next year, I think that we're just going to see. I think we'll end up seeing more instances like Pokemon Go where new apps take off, and maybe not always in gaming. Up until now, it's virtual reality. The immediate use cases are probably it seems most obvious that they'll be tied to entertainment and video games. But I think we're going to start to see other companies experiment with different uses now as the technology and the hardware becomes more accessible.
Yeah, I'm thinking like the travel sector,
travel,
experiential stuff.
Yeah, definitely. There are. I already know in terms of travel agencies. I think Thomson experimented with virtual reality tours in their stores, so using virtual reality headsets to give you a tour of your hotel and the resorts and stuff like that. So there are going to be travel. I think even healthcare is going to be interesting as well. But where I think one of the biggest game changers to this, I think, is more recently, and that's Google Daydream. So Google introduced their headset device, Google Cardboard, which was maybe a $15, $20 option. And they distributed that to agencies as part of their Google partners. It was like their introduction into, hey, this is what's going to happen. But Daydream's like, okay, we're getting serious now. So the actual screenshot there to the right hand side is of a Google Daydream headset. I think it's called Daydream View is its official name. And Google Daydream is their kind of framework or their hub for all things virtual reality on Android. So what they've done is they've used their Android network to open up virtual reality now to the average Android kind of customer. So this is where as soon as it gets distributed and distribution and accessibility becomes as soon as it becomes more accessible, then you start to get new apps that are spawned from that and new ideas that are spawned from that. At the moment, going into the end of this year, there's only a couple of Daydream compatible phones. So including the Pixel, which is Google's new phone. But I think that as new phones and new Android phones come out, Daydream works on a compatibility similar to how HD did when HD comes out. You have to have a Daydream compatible phone in order to kind of use the hub. But they really upped their game. You can now, using Daydream, you can look at Google Play Store in virtual reality. So you're navigating. It's a completely new way to navigate things like Play. And I expect that to happen to things like iTunes. Soon it won't be a scrollable desktop kind of app, or you'll be looking at iTunes in virtual reality and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so it's a completely different way to navigate. It's a completely new way to purchase, and it's going to open up loads of different marketing opportunities. What I would say is that the real kind of key takeaway for marketers is that you can start researching now. I'm not saying go away and invest in it straight away, because I think that would be maybe the wrong mentality. It's kind of, I would say, if you're investing in VR, you should, or even AR, you should be kind of maybe solution focused. So, how can VR or AR improve or overcome customer pain points?
I mean, I was just thinking, imagine this for top-end car manufacturer. You can actually sit in the car and look around. You can use that voice speech.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if someone like
change
Tesla.
the configuration, a different model of car, and
sit inside it.
And you sit inside looking around, kind of thing. I mean, the potential is just massive.
Yeah, no, it really is. And again, like you said, you've got an idea, probably from using cardboard and stuff yourself, about other industries that you can start applying it to. And I just think it's as it becomes more mainstream, you're going to start seeing different experiments being undertaken with VR and AR. Yeah, so if you're a marketer sitting out there, or you work in some kind of customer focused or customer solution role, start the research process. So there are social listening tools out there where you can maybe start looking at maybe what to take your brand name or take your industry name or your sector name, append the words virtual reality, append the words VR, append augmented reality. Start seeing what users are. Now, this is a really interesting topic. Is that I think now people are predicting. We're already predicting where this technology might go. So there are users out there who are probably coming out with brilliant ideas that you can go and steal and use for your research process. Keyword research. So you can use things like the keyword planner or Moz keyword tool. See if people are searching in search engines for this already. So take your brand name. See if people are expecting. If you're a hotel company, for example, take your brand name, append VR. See if people are searching for that information already.
It's great.
And customer surveys as well. So things like if you're familiar with tools like Hotjar or Qualaroo to survey customers, ask them, write blog posts about it, get feedback. If you have a podcast, maybe have someone on your podcast talk about those kind of topics on your podcast. Just gather as much feedback from customers as you can to try and make your if you do go into VR or a VR investment, I would say solution focused. And also have fun with it. And I haven't put it. There's really two key takeaways. I'm going to be there's one.
Cheeky and get to it.
Yeah, I'm going to get two in here. So one is start the research process, but really go and get a headset, go and experiment.
Yeah.
Because you can get VR headsets for as cheap as $10 or £10. So it's more accessible than ever.
More accessible than you might think.
Yeah. And if you're interested in kind of getting a more premium solution. Daydream, which is the you'll see the lady on the right hand side there wearing the Daydream View. She's also got the kind of handheld device which you use. Those things you can buy for I think £70 now. They're available in the UK and US.
Wow, that's just so cool.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, and on to our last point, number 10, HTTP2.
Okay, so finishing off on the need for speed mode. Again, this isn't a new thing. This started around about 2015, but the limitations of the current technology that underpins websites, known as HTTP, has been driven forward, and a new protocol called HTTP2 was developed. And the promise here is it's going to give you the edge in terms of faster page delivery for browsers. I did some quick investigation, and I'll share the links where I've done my research, and it seems about 11% of websites are now using HTTP2. But in the last year, I was looking at a very steep increase in terms of take-up, literally in the last 12 months. So that's fascinating. But there are some significant obstacles, and you need to be aware of these obstacles, because essentially there's a lot of resources going to be required to shift over. It's not something you can just flick a switch and your current website and all its associated technologies are just going to work. So, for example, current page optimization techniques that you may be familiar with, sort of to counter the recommendations that are given to you in PageSpeed Insights, for example, or any kind of waterfall optimization tool that shows you how things are loading. These are not going to work in the same way, and the techniques that you're using to optimize might actually harm you if you are adopting HTTP2. So the thing here is it requires a complete technical rethink of how you build your website. So this is going to be like a huge resource issue potentially. But what I think is important is that we talked about HTTPS and migrating to HTTPS, and it's come up a lot. And Google dangled the carrot and said there'll be potentially a small ranking benefit from doing this, and we've seen mixed results from that. But HTTPS gives you your referral data, which you won't ordinarily get. So maybe for that alone, and the fact that it gives your customers a greater sense of security of your site, I think in 2017 is like pretty much a no-brainer. To if you're doing any kind of migration, you should be thinking that the migration should incorporate HTTPS. So that's my takeaway there. Start planning your move to HTTPS if you haven't done it already. If you're doing this as part of a wider migration project, I suggest that you make that move to HTTPS a separate sub-project, and don't do it all in one go. Don't do the whole migration, HTTPS, everything else in one hit, because you'll want to be able to make sure your HTTPS move goes without a hitch and smoothly. Otherwise, you will lose traffic, and it will be detrimental. But yeah, I just wanted to get that in. It's out there. I think, once HTTPS is fully embedded, we're going to see that protocol HTTP2. Designers, developers are going to start utilizing that again for higher speed and better conversion, better user experience, etc. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, that is a wrap. So we really enjoyed that. We think it's going to be a hugely interesting year. It's already been an interesting year. I think some of the key takeaways for me are, mobile is going to be a huge topic. I think just that last point about security is going to be a huge topic. And really, opportunity. There's so many different ways now to interact and find and provide solutions to customers. And we just talked about some of the technology changes that are going to enable that.
Yeah, I mean, bots and VR particularly.
Bots as well,
how that all integrates. We talked about them separately, but they're going to be coming together. And that integration, it's going to be phenomenal.
It can feel overwhelming, but it's also it's a hugely exciting time, and we've got all of these new things to play with.
Yeah.
You can find me at Scott Colnut on Twitter,
and I'll be there on Twitter as well.
At John Hibbett.
If
you've got any questions, fire them away on Twitter, or you can email grow@sitevisibility.com. You can email your questions there, or you can pick up the phone and talk to us about any of these topics if you want to as well. We'll be posting up this video and also a bunch of links and things we referred to probably on the same post as well, so you should be able to find those super easy. Thanks for your time. We hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.